Well, good day. I'm Dwayne Matz. Welcome to today's Living Word. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Just going to read verse 7 to you right now. But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to each one for the profit of all. That's 1 Corinthians 12:7. And we've been talking about spiritual gifts that are spoken of in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And as we look at them, let's never forget this, okay? Never forget their purpose. They were given to exhibit the presence of the Holy Spirit in the congregation and are used to profit all who are present. One of the gifts mentioned here is that of speaking in different tongues. And this supernatural phenomenon brings up more questions than answers. Its first occurrence mentioned in the Bible, of course, is in Acts chapter 2, verse 4, where they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. That was on that first Pentecost. And consider the miracle about that, okay? I mean, your tongue taken over by the Holy Spirit of God. No control. God's got it. James 3 reminds us that no man can tame the tongue. Yeah, no man can, but you know what? God can, and he proved it on the day of Pentecost. What a miracle. There were many different language groups that were present in the audience that day, and they all heard the wonderful works of God spoken in their native tongue. There was profit for all, if you will. Then there was the breakout of tongue speaking in the Gentile house of Cornelius. Remember, upon hearing the gospel, the Holy Spirit fell on the Gentiles, and they spoke in tongues, magnifying God. Now, we aren't told what languages were spoken this time around, but someone there understood it because the words they used magnified God. This gift of tongues was also evident in the church at Corinth. And Paul uses an entire chapter, 1 Corinthians 14, to talk about the proper use of this gift in the church setting. And the first point that he makes is that whatever is said in tongues must be understood. Without understanding, it's just a bunch of noise to our human ears. 1 Corinthians 14, beginning at verse 2, says, "For he who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men, but to God. For no one understands him. However, in the Spirit he speaks uninterpreted mysteries. But he who prophesies in understandable language speaks edification and exhortation and comfort to men. He who speaks in a tongue edifies himself, builds up his own faith. But he who prophesies edifies the entire church. He builds up their faith." He goes on to say, "I wish you all spoke with tongues, but even more that you prophesied. For he who prophesies is greater than he who speaks with tongues, unless indeed he interprets, that the church may receive edification." It's all about building up, edification. Paul encourages speaking in tongues, noting the value of self-edification, but he would rather speak words of "thus saith the Lord," that is prophecy, in the church setting for the purpose of building up the faith of others. There's so much to be said here, but I would just say don't get all caught up in trying to understand it all. If you have this gift, you have it. Use it with great Holy Spirit-led discretion. And if you don't have this gift, don't worry about it. Not all will speak in tongues, 1 Corinthians 12:30. And as we shall see, there are bigger fish to fry. I'm Dwayne Matz, and that's today's Living Word.